أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقال الرسول يا رب إن قوم اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا وكذلك جعلنا لكل نبي عدوا من المجرمين وكفى بربك هاديا ونصيرا وقال الذين كفروا لولا نزل عليه القرآن جملة واحدة كذلك لنثبت به فؤادك ورتلناه ترتيلا ولا يأتونك بمثل إلا جئناك بالحق وأحسن تفسيرا الذين يحشرون على وجوههم إلى جهنم أولئك شر مكانا وأضل سبيلا الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. So in the previous session we discussed ayah number 30 at length. There were a couple of points that I wanted to make that some of the scholars have made these very powerful, beneficial points based off of ayah number 30 that I wanted to share here. So I'll start with that. And just to refresh everyone's memory, ayah number 30, the messenger has said, Lord, my people treat this Quran as something to be shunned. So the first point that I wanted to make is something that Imam as-Subki, rahimahullah ta'ala, he's made a very powerful and a very profound point from a legal or philosophical perspective, from an usulul fiqh perspective. And what he says here is that this ayah, along with a couple of other ayat in the Quran, help to establish the point that not complying with something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded can in and of itself be identified as a criminal act. So to explain, the absence of action itself can be identified as an action. The absence of action can be identified as taking a type of action. And just to kind of help everyone make a mental connection to philosophical connection to what I'm talking about, there's expressions or sayings that basically allude to the similar fact that, not doing what's right in a difficult moment or time in and of itself is compliance with the wrong that's going on. Not opposing something wrong is in and of itself aiding that which is wrong, right? So this idea has been challenged a lot of times philosophically, but is that really the case? Right? If somebody's doing something wrong, and sure, the better thing to do, right, would be to oppose them, to take action against them. But if I'm not doing so, can I be blamed? Can I be held accountable? Am I blameworthy in that situation? Not from a moral perspective, but even from a legal perspective. Would I be blameworthy? Would I be guilty? Would I be sinful? And that's the question. So he says that in this ayah, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? Mahjuran. Right? That maybe it's talking about a group of people who aren't fine. They're not reading the Quran and learning the Quran and spreading the Quran and propagating the Quran. Right? That's fine. We understand that. But on the flip side, someone could argue that at the same time though, it's not like they're propagating against the Quran, that they're arguing and debating against the Quran. They're not opposing the Quran at the same time, right? So how that very clearly make this particular point. The first of them is from Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah number 63, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَوْلَا يَنْهَاهُمُ الرَّبَّانِيُّونَ وَالْأَحْبَارُ عَنْ قَوْلِهِمُ الْإِثْمَ وَأَكْلِهِمُ السُّحْتَ لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَصْنَعُونَ. Okay? A basic translation is that if those who were, the rabbis and priests, the religious leaders of the past, the fact that they did not prohibit people, from speaking evil, from saying bad things, and from consuming bad things. The fact that they did not prevent people from saying bad things and doing bad things, لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَصْنَعُونَ. Allah says about them not preventing the people, not advising the people, not admonishing the people, that was something very bad that they did. That was a very bad action on their part. They didn't prevent the people, and Allah says that was a very bad action. Because Allah uses a word, yasna'un, from as-sun'u, sana'atu, which by all definitions of the word in the lexicon, in the dictionary, refers to a very deliberate action on a person's part. The second example of this in the Quran, also found in Surah Al-Ma'idah, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when He talks about لُعِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِن بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ عَلَى لِسَانِ دَاوُدَ وَعِيسَى بْنِ مَرْيَمَ ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَن مُنْكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. So when Allah talks about some of the people of the past, the nations of the past, who were at the time of different prophets throughout the eras, that they were cursed by their prophets. And then Allah says, what was the crime? كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَن مُنْكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ. That some of them engaged in immorality and engaged in criminal behavior. We understand those people were guilty, they were wrong and deserving of whatever retribution comes their way. But there was another group amongst them who did not necessarily engage in the immorality, but كَانُوا لَا يَتَنَاهَوْنَ عَن مُنْكَرٍ فَعَلُوهُ. They at the same time did not advise, did not work to correct the evils that were present in their communities. Try to curb some of the oppression and violation of rights that existed within their communities. And then Allah says about them, لَبِئْسَ مَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. What they did was very bad. What they did. And Allah uses the word fi'l. That in and of itself is an action. To not stand up for what's right. To not be concerned about what's going on. To not have any type of involvement or participation or contribution to fixing problems. In and of itself is an action, and it's a blameworthy action. So that in this ayah similarly touches on a point of that nature, and I thought it was very remarkable and very profound. I wanted to share it here based off of that. The second thing that I wanted to mention here is Imam al-Razi, rahimahullah ta'ala, poses a question here. He says that Nuh alayhi salam, this statement that is attributed to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Inna qawmi ittakhadu hadha al-Qur'ana mahjura. My people have taken this Qur'an as something to just be ignored, neglected, shunned, abandoned. This mirrors a statement of Nuh alayhi salam. Okay? Where Nuh alayhi salam, in Surah Nuh itself, Surah number 71, Nuh alayhi salam, he says in ayah number 5 and 6, Rabbi inni da'awtu qawmi laylan wa naharan, falam yazidhum du'ai illa firaran. That, oh my Lord, my Master, Ya Allah, I call my people night and day. And my calling them only further, the only thing that increases by me calling them, as I continue to increase and find different ways to bring them closer, they only run further away. Okay, so this is a statement of Nuh alayhi salam, and it's similar, it mirrors that in terms of the sentiment that he's expressing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, but we know that Nuh alayhi salam, his people were destroyed. And the point that's being made here is that for a prophet to get to that point of frustration with the people, where he vocalizes his frustrations, and he expresses his frustration with his people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we see in the story of Nuh alayhi salam that results in the destruction of the people. So the Prophet ﷺ saying, "Inna qawmi yattakhadhu hadha al-Qur'ana mahjura," it's very plausible that the result and the outcome of that could have been the complete annihilation of his people. Now, how does that reconcile with وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ? We talked about previously the empathy of the Prophet ﷺ. عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. How do you reconcile that? So Imam al-Razi rahimahullah ta'ala answers that by saying that what you are missing from that equation is the fact that in Surah Nuh, yes, Nuh alayhi salam complains about his people, but that in and of itself, by itself, is not what leads to their annihilation. Nuh alayhi salam then further prays against his people. He makes dua against his people. لا تذر على الأرض من الكافرين ديارا. He says, just annihilate them, destroy them, remove them. And that again, no accusation can be made against Nuh alayhi salam of not being empathetic or merciful. 950 years. I remember one of our teachers basically said, the ulama, the sulaha, the knowledgeable, the pious, the righteous, their job, their responsibility is to advise their people, counsel their people. And so with a lot of our senior teachers and scholars, we would see that they would really strongly, especially with young, strong-headed, overzealous types, right? They would constantly advise him about mercy and empathy and softness and gentleness and kindness. And the fact that, deen is brought into the lives of the people gradually. The significance of gradualism from the Quran, from the life, the story, the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. So one individual, I was there present and kind of came up to one of our teachers and said afterwards that, You say this, but what about Nuh alayhi salam praying for the destruction of his people when they don't listen? Doesn't that also have evidence and precedent? That's also a line of thinking, that's also a thought? And he responded by saying that, yes, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us that Nuh alayhi salam preached to his people for 950 years. How long have you been doing it? How long have I been doing it? How long have we been working? When we get to 950 years, inshallah, we'll make dua against the people as well. Right? So, the idea is that Nuh alayhi salam prayed actually against the people, and our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, forget about praying against the people, one of his du'as was, "Oh Allah, do not allow my ummah to be obliterated and annihilated." So he made quite the opposite dua, so that nobody can basically connect these two things together. And then the next ayah, of course, will further elaborate on this, and that's where we'll start, inshallah, with ayah number 31. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا مِنَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا وَنَصِيرًا. A translator writes, but we have always appointed adversaries from the wicked for every prophet. Your Lord is sufficient guide and helper. So in this ayah, Allah says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا مِنَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. That similarly, in this manner, as we have talked about above, as we've been discussing so far, Allah is saying that we have made for every single prophet enemies from the criminal people, from some of the immoral people. The criminal people. We have always made enemies, adversaries. And that's why we have the likes of Abu Jahl from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet ﷺ, when Abu Jahl was finally killed on the day of Badr, the Prophet ﷺ commented and he said that the Fir'aun of my ummah, Fir'aun ummati, halaka Fir'aun ummati, that the Fir'aun of my ummah has died today, has departed today. Alright? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this different places in the Quran as well. In Surah Al-An'am, ayah number 112, Allah says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. That similarly, we have made for every single prophet enemies and adversaries from the shayateen of the human beings. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we know that the shaitan is a jinn, right? We were familiar with that. But Allah uses the plural shayateen and then tells us that there are shayateen troublemakers amongst the jinn, but also amongst the human beings. So here Allah specifically says shayateen al-ins, from the troublemakers amongst human beings. يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. And they conspire with one another. Alright, so this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions many other places in the Quran. Something that's very curious about the language that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in this ayah is that the word ja'alna, Allah says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا. Now, we have made. Now, a lot of us are very familiar with this dynamic in the Quran, that this is the majestic we, the royal plural, the royal we, the majestic plural. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks in the plural, not to, by any means, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, contradict Tawheed and the oneness of God, but this is a manner of speaking. Alright? However, the observation within the Quran is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala primarily speaks in this majestic plural or royal we when Allah talks about bestowing a particular blessing. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَاكَ سَبْعًا مِّنَ الْمَثَانِي وَالْقُرْآنِ الْعَظِيمِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Hijr, Surah number 15, ayah number 87, when Allah talks about granting the Quran as a gift, آتَيْنَا, we have granted. إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرِ. When Allah talks about giving the gift of Kawthar, the fountain of Kawthar to the Prophet ﷺ, Allah uses أَعْطَيْنَا, we have granted. So the question here is that Allah says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا, we have made. So usually Allah speaks in this particular tone when He's talking about a blessing that He's bestowed upon the Prophet ﷺ. But here Allah is saying that we've appointed adversaries and enemies from bad people. From amongst the bad people, we have appointed enemies and adversaries for all prophets, including you. So the existence and the presence of these people should not confound you, should not cause you to doubt yourself. But this is the standard operating procedure. But the first question is, in terms of the tone and the language, why is Allah mentioning it with the tone that talks about giving blessings? How is this a blessing? That the answer that's given to this question by many of the scholars is أن خلق العداوة سبب لإزدياد المشقة التي هي موجبة لمزيد الثواب. One answer that's given is that the existence and the presence of some level of challenge and obstacle and difficulty, it leads to greater resolve, stronger convictions. And those greater resolves, that greater resolve and those stronger convictions, they lead to greater sacrifices. And all of that leads to a much grander reward and confidence and knowledge and understanding of exactly who you are and what you're doing. Right? It really, it tests your convictions, and then those convictions lead to commitment. Right? And that's the station of yaqeen, where you know exactly who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. And that can only come through this. One of the early people who were, went through a lot of difficulty and adversity, the likes of Khabbab ibn al-Arat, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, where they would light coals on fire, they would burn them until they were red, and then they would put him on his back and drag him across those coals. His back was so deformed and hideous because of this. So frightening. That Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu sometimes used to go to him and ask him that, remind me of the early days. Remind me of those early days. And he would show him his back, and Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And every single time I saw his back, it brought me back to reality. I remembered exactly where we came from and what we're about. Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu, I alluded to it before, dragged in the streets, beaten until they were tired. And so one of these, Zinira radiallahu ta'ala anha, a woman, slave woman, who was tortured until she went blind. And after she went blind, then they tied her up and they would starve her for days and then bring food closer so she could smell the aroma. And when she'd reach out to get it, they'd pull it away and she'd fall. So one of these individuals that was making such sacrifices was asked, what exactly? Like, what's going on here? And they said that, when you buy, they would have these clay pots. these pots and dishes and little different things for the house that were made out of clay. So when you go buy a clay pot, the way that you check to see if it has any cracks or it's faulty is that you pick it up and you kind of tap on it, you knock on it. You test it. You check it. We have the expression of kick the tires on it. Right? And that's how you know it's solid. So I'm not confused by my situation at all because Allah is checking me to see how solid I am. And I know how solid I am. That these people could take, what are they going to take? They could take anything and everything from me that they want. But I know who I am, I know what I believe. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then, in the next part of the ayah, Allah says, وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا وَنَصِيرًا. وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا وَنَصِيرًا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your Lord, your Master Allah, is sufficient as a guider, as a guide, someone who guides. Okay? وَنَصِيرًا, and as a helper, someone who helps. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this many different places in the Quran, alludes to this. مَن يَهْدِ اللَّهُ فَهُوَ الْمُهْتَدِ. That whomsoever God guides, Allah guides, then that person is truly guided. قُلْ إِنَّ هُدَى اللَّهِ هُوَ الْهُدَى. The guidance of Allah is the only real true guidance. إِن يَنْصُرْكُمُ اللَّهُ فَلَا غَالِبَ لَكُمْ وَإِن يَخْذُلْكُمْ فَمَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَنْصُرُكُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ. That if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to help you, then no one can overcome you. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to abandon you, then you would not find anyone to assist you or help you after that. So, وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا وَنَصِيرًا. Now, how does that fit into the context here? What does that mean in terms of, how does that contribute to the meaning here? What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here. Number one, because Allah has said that similarly, Allah has appointed these adversaries and enemies from the criminal people for every prophet, including you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ibn Kathir mentions that these people who are your adversaries and enemies, they can try to create every obstacle and every challenge that they can think of, that they can come up with, to people accepting Islam and believing in Islam. وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا. But Allah is sufficient as a guide, and Allah will guide people through these challenges, through these adversities, through these difficulties. Allah will still bring people to guidance. And that's exactly what we see happening. That the more that they increase their torture, the more rapidly Islam continued to grow. The more they oppose them, the greater the force that was guidance and hidayah became. And so that's the obvious meaning of it that Ibn Kathir rahimahullah ta'ala mentions. Another very powerful meaning that's mentioned by Ibn Ashur rahimahullah ta'ala, that's very, very important and very sobering and very necessary. It's like the Qur'an's tarbiyah for us. How the Qur'an reminds us and checks us not to become arrogant and not to become conceited. That he mentions ta'reedun بأن يفوض الأمر إليه فإنه كاف في الهداية والنصر. He basically says that the Prophet ﷺ, he quotes the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said لعل الله أن يخرج من أصلابهم من يعبده وبأنه ينصره على الذين يصرون على عداوته. That maybe, the Prophet ﷺ said, it's very possible that Allah will bring from their generations, from their children, from their progeny, people who will worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help His deen in spite of all their opposition. That the deen will grow and will continue to spread and will grow and spread within their own homes. And so we see that sometimes it's not even so much about the next generation, because I've talked about this before as well. How many of those people who earlier opposed the Prophet ﷺ, those same people came back around and then put their hand in the hand of the Prophet ﷺ and accepted Islam. Submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is to remind us as well that Allah is the one who guides. And Allah helps. Allah will help us in our cause, but Allah guides. We don't own this deen. We don't own Iman. We don't have ownership of it. It's very easy for us to get caught up in this type of rhetoric where we talk as if it's ours to distribute. Who's worthy and who's not. Oh, he said something nice about us? Okay, then he's okay. Oh, he's got bad things to say about us? Well, forget him. إِلَى نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ خَالِدًا فِيهَا. This is very problematic and it's very scary because people who start to think this way, they themselves can deprive their own selves of guidance. It's Allah's to give and Allah's to take away. That's why Allah constantly gives this example in the Quran. يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ. See, يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ is very logical. Allah brings the living from the dead. We get that part. We see it every single day. The spiritual parable here, the spiritual parallel, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can bring about iman. Allah can place iman in someone's heart who previously did not have any iman. Allah can bring someone to guidance. Bring the living from the dead. Spiritually bring someone to life. We get that. But يُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ. He can bring the dead from the living. Right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can snatch that iman away from someone. And so we have to be very careful and very cautious. Allah guides. Right? And we have no further commentary on that. And even when Allah says, وَكَفَى بِرَبِّكَ هَادِيًا وَنَصِيرًا, Allah helps. Yes, Allah has said, وَكَانَ حَقًّا عَلَيْنَا نَصْرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah does help the believers. But the first and foremost priority in Allah's help and Allah's assistance as well is إِن تَنْصُرُوا اللَّهَ يَنْصُرْكُمْ. The priority is the deen. Do you put the deen first? Or are you putting yourself first? Yes, Allah helps the believers, but Allah helps the believers when they put the deen first. When they put Islam first. That's our priority. Not the realization of our own vendettas. Not the implementation of our own anger. Right? That cannot be the priority. Then we don't really fall under that category. We don't really fall under that description of people who are devout, people who are dedicated to the deen. And the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the last point that I'll make on this ayah is the help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When does it come? How does it come? Where does it come? That's something as well that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And there's a very beautiful, powerful example of this from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. There's an ayah in Surah Al-Qamar. There's an ayah in Surah Al-Qamar, Surah number 54. Ayah number 45. Allah says, سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرُ. سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ. That very soon the army will be defeated, the group will be defeated. وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرُ. And they'll run and they'll turn their backs and they'll run for the hills. They'll retreat, they'll run away. This ayah was revealed in Makkah. Like in the mid-Meccan period. Where there was no war, there was no fighting, there was no battle. The Muslims were a minority, they were oppressed, and so on and so forth. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu comments, he says that when this ayah was revealed, I was curious about it. That I said, أَيُّ جَمْعٍ هَذَا? What is this talking about? يعني تعجب كيف سنهزم هؤلاء ونحن الآن عاجزون حتى عن حماية أنفسنا ولا نبيت إلا في السلاح ولا نصبح إلا في السلاح نخاف أن يتخطف الناس أن يتخطفنا الناس. He says that I was very perplexed by this. I said, what is this talking about? Because how are we going to defeat these people when we can't even protect ourselves right now? We go to sleep with our swords next to us. We wake up with our swords next to us. We're afraid that the people are going to come and just snatch us up. But then he says, فَلَمَّا وَقَعَتْ بَدْرٍ وَهُزِمَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ وَحُصِلَتْ أَرْوَاحُ صَنَادِيدِهِمْ قَالَ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ. In fact, there's another narration that when the Battle of Badr happened and when the Muslims started to push back the Quraysh and started to overrun the army of the Quraysh, that some narrations mention the Sahaba heard the Prophet ﷺ standing in the middle of the battlefield saying, سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرُ. This is what God was talking about all those years ago. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, when I saw all of that happening, I said, Sadaq Allah. God spoke the truth. I just didn't have the foresight to know or to see or to understand. But God spoke the truth. The next ayah, ayah number 32, Allah says, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الْقُرْآنُ جُمْلَةً وَاحِدَةً كَذَلِكَ لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. A translator writes, the disbelievers also say, why was the Qur'an not sent down to him all at once? We sent it in this way to strengthen your heart, O Prophet. We gave it to you in gradual revelation. Okay, we've talked about this topic before, and this is another objection, an objection similar to the objection that they had made earlier, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings it back here. But over here, when Allah brings it back, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also gives a more detailed response to it, because the detailed response fits in with the consolation to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That exactly to show that we are consoling you, and we are strengthening you, and we are confirming you, and affirming you. Every single day, morning and evening, day and night, by the revelation, the gradual revelation of this Qur'an. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I had mentioned this earlier in Surah Al-Isra, Surah number 17, ayah 106, Allah says, وَقُرْآنًا فَرَقَّنَاهُ لِتَقْرَأَهُ عَلَى النَّاسِ عَلَى مُكْثٍ وَنَزَّلْنَاهُ تَنزِيلًا. That Allah says that this Qur'an, that we have distributed it, separated it, and then Allah says, so that you may read it, recite it upon the people, with pause. Ala mukth, take your time with it, with pause and deliberation, for the purpose of contemplation and reflection and internalization. وَنَزَّلْنَاهُ تَنزِيلًا, and similarly we have revealed it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. That word, نُثَبِّتَ, comes from the word tathbit, which means to solidify, to strengthen, to confirm. So that we may solidify, so that we may strengthen, by means of it, the Qur'an, fu'adak, your heart. And Allah doesn't just use the word heart, He uses the word fu'ad, which specifically refers to the heart when it is very troubled, when it is very going through a range of different emotions, experiencing a lot of different difficulties. So that we can settle your heart by means of this Qur'an. It'll bring you peace and tranquility and comfort and stability. And this is very profound because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He describes iman, faith, belief, and He talks about the effect of faith and belief on a person, Allah says, وَمَثَلُ كَلِمَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ. The example of faith and belief is like a beautiful tree. أَصْلُهَا thabit. Its roots are firm. Thabit, from the same word. Its roots are firm. So what Allah is saying is that this Qur'an will make you firm. Stabilize your heart and your emotions and your thoughts. Alright? And that is part of the profound benefit of the gradual revelation of the Qur'an. There's this, of course, there's a narration of Sunan Nasa'i, that's very well known from Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. He says, أُنزِلَ الْقُرْآنُ جُمْلَةً إِلَى سَمَاءِ الدُّنْيَا فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ ثُمَّ نُزِّلَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فِي 20. Right? That the Qur'an was sent down all at once from the Lawh al-Mahfuz to the sky of the world, and from there it was revealed over the period of 23 years gradually. So, there's another question that Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah ta'ala brings up about this ayah, this accusation or this challenge of why wasn't the Qur'an sent down all at once. That he discusses who was this mentioned by. Ibn Abbas says that this was mentioned by the kuffar of the Quraysh. However, there are other narrations which also allude to the fact that this same complaint was made against, or the same accusation, the same objection rather, was made against the Qur'an and against the Prophet ﷺ by the Jews of Medina. That they also similarly had this objection to the Prophet ﷺ. And when talking about the gradual revelation of the Qur'an, we talked about this earlier, but Imam al-Razi very nicely compiles together a few points. This is a huge topic even in Ulum al-Qur'an, right? Nuzul al-Qur'ani munajjaman, that the gradual revelation of the Qur'an, what are the different benefits of it? What are the different, what are the different benefits and the different aspects of what makes it so remarkable and so amazing. So the first point that he mentions is that one of the primary benefits of the Quran coming down gradually is that it allows for gradual legislation. The entire code of conduct, the entire code of legislation does not come down at one time and thereby becoming very overwhelming. As Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha very famously commented, that had Islam started with the prohibition of like wine and different things, then it would have been very difficult for people to really grow to a point where they could embrace the faith and really commit themselves to Islam. Right? So that it allows for that gradual implementation of the code and the legislation as well. Number two, the second thing that it mentions is that as difficulties and challenges and obstacles continue to present themselves, the gradual revelation of the Quran provides also gradual guidance and instruction, how to handle these different challenges, and how to respond to different things. Thirdly, think about the Prophet ﷺ personally, as well as somebody who has to bear this entire mission on his shoulders, carry it all on his shoulders, and he has to face all the difficulty that is taking place. That if the Quran comes down gradually, over a period of 23 years, every single day, multiple times a day, that is the Prophet ﷺ interacting with Jibreel alayhi salam multiple times a day. And think about how that also strengthens the resolve of the Prophet ﷺ and comforts the Prophet ﷺ. The other thing is that the challenge that the Quran made about bring something like the Quran, and even though the Quran explicitly even says, even if it be one ayah, but doesn't that make the challenge a lot more, hypothetically speaking, doesn't it make the challenge a lot more reasonable? It's not like the whole Quran came down all at once, where now you have to meet, this 600-page challenge. But it's coming down gradually, little by little, bit by bit, piece by piece. You can keep up with it. So it also further establishes the challenge that was made about the Quran. The next point that we had talked about previously as well, that this further establishes the point about the miraculousness of the Quran and the perfection of the Quran, that even though it was gradually revealed over a period of 23 years, it never became disjointed or disconnected or scattered in thought. But it always stayed connected and flowing and consistent in its message. And so these are, so many different aspects of the benefits and the miraculousness of the Quran coming down gradually, bit by bit, piece by piece. Now, the next part of the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. Now, when translated, a lot of times, different translations, different translators have expressed it differently. Like we said, we gave it to you in gradual revelation. Some said, and we have spaced it distinctly. Some said that, and we have arranged it in right order. All right. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses this word another place in the Quran, He says, وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. Recite it very deliberately and properly and gradually. Okay, but that's in the command form to us. But when Allah says وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا, basically Allah is saying that we have recited it to you gradually and very deliberately. But Allah reciting it, meaning that refers to Allah revealing it. Like the Quran being recited for the very first time, delivered for the very first time to the Prophet ﷺ. So it is talking about revelation. But the lesson from here, again, this is emphasizing the fact that we have given it to you very deliberately and very thoughtfully and very gradually. But another benefit from this is also it's a reminder of what Allah says in the other place in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, in Surah Al-Muzammil, about reciting the Quran very deliberately and properly. That Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, in a hadith, she says that when describing the recitation of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she says, "La kasardikum hada." that the Prophet ﷺ did not recite the Quran the way you mumble the Quran today. He didn't read like you people read. She said, لو أراد السامع أن يعد حروفه يعدها. She said that if somebody who was listening to the Prophet ﷺ reciting the Quran, if they wanted to count the letters of the Quran as the Prophet ﷺ recited it, they would have been able to. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Very clearly and deliberately. And yesterday we talked a lot about contemplation, reflection upon the Quran. That's what these sessions are all about. That's the purpose of these sessions as well. That also facilitates that level of reflection and contemplation and thought. Right? So, وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. In the next ayah number 33, Allah says, وَلَا يَأْتُونَكَ بِمَثَلٍ إِلَّا جِئْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ وَأَحْسَنَ تَفْسِيرًا. Translator writes, they cannot put any argument to you without our bringing you the truth and the best explanation. وَلَا يَأْتُونَكَ بِمَثَلٍ إِلَّا جِئْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ وَأَحْسَنَ تَفْسِيرًا. That whenever they come to you with any type of any argument. Now the word mathal is used, and a lot of times the mathal is translated as example. But we talked about this. انظر كيف ضربوا لك الأمثال. Look at all these different arguments they come to you with. Look at all these different accusations they make against you. Because the meaning of the word mathal is more than just an example. Because an example is a lot of times given. A parallel is drawn. A parable is given when trying to support an argument. So that's what it's talking about. Alright? It's dhikrul madlul wa iradatud dal. Right? Like what basically what you're saying, but what you're really trying to establish. Or the vice versa. Dhikrul dal wa iradatul madlul. Right? When you mention the evidence of something, you say, oh, there's smoke. Oh no, help, please, there's smoke. Well, obviously what you mean is, please help, there's fire. Alright? So same thing here. They come to you with these examples, these parallels. Right? But what's really meant is the objections they make against you, the arguments that they make against you. So every single time they bring an argument against you, Allah says, جِئْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ. We deliver to you the truth. And I translate it with the word deliver because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses a very powerful word, and that is the word of جِئْنَاكَ, al-maji. Alright? And that word, al-maji, there's a very interesting analysis that's made about the usage of this word and one of its, synonyms. So before actually I delve into that, if you survey the different arguments they've made against the Prophet ﷺ so far that have been mentioned in the surah. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا إِفْكٌ إِفْتَرَاهُ وَعَنَهُ عَلَيْهِ قَوْمٌ آخَرُونَ. He fabricates the Quran, and he's got a group of people that help him plagiarize. وَقَالُوا أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. These are just stories of old, just fables, fairy tales. وَقَالُوا مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامَ. Why does he need to eat food and seek out sustenance? وَقَالَ الظَّالِمُونَ إِن تَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَى رَجُلٍ مَسْحُورًا. Y'all are following somebody who's possessed, under a spell, bewitched. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا لَوْلَا أُنزِلَ عَلَيْنَا الْمَلَائِكَةِ. That they don't believe, they don't hope, they don't look forward to the hereafter. And they say, why don't angels come and directly speak to us? If you want us to believe so bad, tell the angels to come talk to us. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْلَا نُزِلَ عَلَيْهِ الْقُرْآنُ جُمْلَةً وَاحِدَةً. Right? Why doesn't the Quran come down all at once? These are all the different objections that they made. And Allah had said, انظر كيف ضربوا لك الأمثال. Look at these silly arguments they keep coming back with time and time again. But I was talking about, Allah says, so every single time they bring these silly arguments, جِئْنَاكَ, we deliver to you the truth. So, Ibn Ashur mentions a very interesting analysis that there is the word ita, to grant, to give. And then there is the word maji, which actually means to come, to arrive. But when you join it with the preposition of ba, ji'naka bil haqqi. Everyone see it? Bil haqqi? Right? That's the ba harf of jar. So whenever the fi'l ji'naka, right, al-maji, to arrive, to come, is joined with the ba harf of jar, the preposition of ba, it creates the meaning of delivering something. And there's the other fi'l, the other word, آتَيْنَاكَ سَبْعًا مِنَ الْمَثَانِي وَالْقُرْآنَ الْعَظِيمِ. We gave you the Qur'an. آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا. Give us the good of this dunya. Give, grant us, right? Why did Allah not say وَآتَيْنَاكَ إِلَّا آتَيْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ? So he talks about this very interesting analysis, and one of the things that he mentions is that the word ita, to grant something, can also be used figuratively, metaphorically. It has many different implications. But when you use the word maji with the preposition of ba, it means to like deliver something. It has a very strong, a very powerful, very imposing meaning. And it's used in the Quran specifically for when God delivers the concluding arguments in a disagreement. When Allah shuts somebody down. And the examples from the Quran, Allah says, قَدْ جَاءَكُمْ بُرْهَانٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Your Lord, your Master delivered to you the concluding argument. وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. Your Lord arrived, He came, and the angels were lined up, the day of judgment. Because that's the conclusion. This is the end. This is where everything, all the books will be settled. إِذَا جَاءَ Nasrullahi, when the help of God came, when it arrives, when it is delivered. Alright? And again, because that'll seal the deal, that'll end everything. وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ. When the truth arrives, falsehood dissipates. Falsehood disperses and dissipates. Evaporates. Alright? So it has a very strong meaning. حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَمْرُنَا وَفَارَتَ النُّورِ. In the story of Nuh alayhi salam, Allah says, when our command came, and then the oven kind of flowed over, where it talks about like the oven, like they would have these ovens in the ground. They would dig these ditches in the ground where they would cook inside of. That started to bubble up with water. Water started to come out of that, and that was a sign. So when our command came, and that command was, of course, a command at the time of Nuh alayhi salam, that everything was done. It has that type of conclusiveness to it. So here Allah uses that ji'naka bil haqq. Then we delivered the truth. And that's it. That's the end of the conversation. And then Allah says, wa ahsana tafsiran. And we bring a better explanation. We bring a better explanation. Alright? Ahsana tafsiran is explained by some of the scholars and the mufassirun, specifically commenting on it. The exact verbiage that they use for ahsana tafsiran is bayanan. Bayanan mubinan. Like a very clear elaboration of exactly what it is. That is one of the meanings of وَأَحْسَنَ تَفْسِيرًا. And so a very, very clear explanation of what this is referring to, what it's alluding to, and what it's talking about. Alright? Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, he actually comments on this. He says, لا يأتونك بمثل أي بما يلتمسون به عيب القرآن والرسول. Whenever they try to find fault in the Quran, whenever they try to find faults in the Messenger, إلا جئناك بالحق وأحسن تفسيرا إلا نزل جبريل من الله بجوابهم. Then Jibreel comes down with an answer from God for them. Alright? So very, very powerful. We bring a better explanation. This is, of course, if you kind of are paying attention, this is that word tafsir. وَأَحْسَنَ تَفْسِيرًا. Right? The first thing is ahsan means better. So again, we've talked about this previously, that if you literally try to translate it, then that somebody could think that that's suggesting that there is something good in their argument. But of course, this is being used to more so say that there's absolutely nothing good in their argument. It's mocking them. Their silly argument. That this is the real explanation. The word tafsir is very interesting. I know we've been engaging in tafsir, the study of tafsir rather, but we haven't talked about what that word actually means. We know that it's kind of a technical term that refers to the interpretation and discussion and study of the Quran. But the word tafsir comes from fasr. The word fasr actually means to uncover, or to expose, or to make clear. And so tafsir is the act of actually unfolding something. And that's what it is. You're peeling back the different layers of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. That's the practice of tafsir. Alright? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that we come with the truth. We deliver the truth and we bring the ultimate, the best explanation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Imam al-Razi says that this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explaining what Allah talks about in Surah Al-Anbiya, Surah number 21, ayah number 18. بَلْ نَقْذِفُ بِالْحَقِّ عَلَى الْبَاطِلِ فَيَدْمَغُهُ فَإِذَا هُوَ زَاهِقٌ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we strike falsehood with the truth, and the truth destroys falsehood. It crushes it, obliterates it. Alright? Now, in the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes this passage by saying, الَّذِينَ يُحْشَرُونَ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ إِلَى جَهَنَّمْ. They are those people. يُحْشَرُونَ, we've seen this before, وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ, that the day that He will gather all of them. So, الَّذِينَ يُحْشَرُونَ, this is the passive. That these are those people who will be gathered, brought together, collected. عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ, on their faces. I'll explain this in just a moment. إِلَى جَهَنَّمْ, to the fire of hell. أُولَٰئِكَ شَرٌ, that those people, they are شَرٌ مَكَانًا, most evil in terms of, the worst in terms of where they will end up. وَأَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا, and completely lost in this life in terms of the path they follow. A translator writes more concisely, it is those driven, falling on their faces to hell, who will be in the worst place. They are the furthest from the right path. Okay? So a lot of the verbiage here, the language in the ayah is pretty self-explanatory. The two things that I will explain very quickly here at the end, inshallah, is first of all, it says those people that will be brought together on their faces. Now, what does that exactly mean, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, وَمَنْ جَاءَ بِسَيِّئَةِ فَكُبَّتْ وُجُوهُهُمْ فِي النَّارِ. Surah An-Naml, ayah number 90. That those who come with nothing but evil on the day of resurrection, that those people will be thrown onto their faces in the fire of hell. وَيَوْمَ تُقَلَّبُ وُجُوهُهُمْ فِي النَّارِ. The day that their faces, they'll be thrown face first into the fire of hell. وَيَوْمَ يُسْحَبُونَ فِي النَّارِ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ ذُوقُوا مَسَّ سَقَرَ. In Surah Al-Qamar, Allah says that it is that day that they'll be dragged on their faces in the fire of hell, and they'll be told that taste the most painful, tormenting punishment of the blazing pits of hell. Not only that, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes their very terrible plight in many different ways in the Quran, in Surah Al-Isra. وَنَحْشُرُهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. We will gather them all together on the day of resurrection, عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ, on their faces, عُمْيًا وَبُكْمًا وَسُمًّا, unable to see or hear or speak. مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ, their final destination will be the fire of hell. كُلَّمَا خَبَتْ زِدْنَاهُمْ سَعِيرًا. That every single time, time passes and it seems to, they seem to become like acclimated to it. Allah says we will further increase the fire. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. That whosoever refuses, ignores the reminder from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says we put that person will have a very frustrating existence in this world. وَنَحْشُرُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى, and we'll resurrect them, we'll bring them, we'll gather them on the day of judgment, unable to see. And then they will ask, لِمَّ حَشَرْتَنِي أَعْمَى وَقَدْ كُنْتُ بَصِيرًا. Why can I not see Allah? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though I used to see in the world, and Allah will say, كَذَلِكَ أَتَتْكَ آيَاتُنَا فَنَسِيتَهَا. Our signs, our verses, they came to you, but you decided to ignore them and pretend like they didn't even exist. So that's what's happened to you here today. The second theory that some of the Mufassirun and the scholars mention is that there does seem to be some reference to the fact that it's almost describing as if they will be upside down Like it's almost like they'll be kind of like walking upside down, that they'll come upside down. So one idea that makes a lot of sense is they're being dragged along, by their legs, so they're being dragged on their faces. But there also is some reference from the Prophet ﷺ, Inna ladhi amshahu. And it's not necessarily that the Prophet ﷺ is saying that's what the ayah means, but when some people read that ayah at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they interpreted it to be saying that these people will be walking like upside down, like walking on their faces. So they tried to come to the Prophet ﷺ, like quote unquote, get in the face of the Prophet ﷺ and say, look, this is what your Quran says? That makes no sense. And the Prophet ﷺ more so responded to them in an authentic narration from Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu by saying that إِنَّ الَّذِي أَمْشَاهُ عَلَى رِجْلَيْهِ قَادِرٌ أَن يُمْشِيَهُ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. That the God who gave human beings the ability to walk on their feet, what if He makes them walk on their face? Like, why are you arguing these things? You're arguing with me about what God can and cannot do, or will not do on the day of judgment, on the day of resurrection. Either way you look at it, whether somebody's being dragged on their face or somebody's being made to walk on their face, it still sounds pretty terrible. So instead of focusing on how can I avoid that, you'd rather sit here and argue with me about what you think is logical or not. That sounds like a fantastic idea. That sounds like a winner's game plan. Right? And so that was more so like the Prophet ﷺ admonishing that person. Not so much saying that that's what it means. Because the Quran gives reference of يُسْحَبُونَ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ فِي النَّارِ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ. They'll be dragged on their faces. And then finally, أُولَٰئِكَ شَرٌّ مَكَانًا, where it says that those people, they are the worst in terms of place. The word makan can mean two things in the Arabic language. Number one, makan is actual place, like physical place. So they are the worst in terms of destination, where they will end up, the fire of hell. The other meaning of the word makan also refers to kind of a person standing, the honor, the dignity, makana, the honor, the dignity of a person. So Allah is saying these people have no honor. These people have no dignity. They stand for nothing. Because they can't even be grateful to their Lord, to their Master Allah. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he expressed this idea very powerfully. And I'll conclude with this. Where Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu said that فَمَنْ لَيْسَ فِيهِ خَيْرٌ لِرَبِّهِ. He was actually speaking in the context of prayer, salah. He said, مَنْ كَانَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مُضِيعًا فَلِغَيْرِهَا أَضْيَعًا. Whosoever will be irresponsible about their prayer will be even more irresponsible about everything else. فَمَنْ لَيْسَ فِيهِ خَيْرٌ لِرَبِّهِ. Because somebody who can't find it within him or herself to be good to God, to be honest with Allah, after everything Allah created them and gave them everything, فَكَيْفَ يَكُونُ فِيهِ خَيْرٌ لِغَيْرِهِ. How? Why would you ever expect that person to be good to anyone else? To be faithful to anyone else? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who are faithful to Allah and who are honest with Allah and who are devoted and committed to Allah. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallah bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. We'll have the adhan for Salat al-Isha. The brothers can help kind of move the tables back, inshallah, to prepare for Salah. Assalamu alaikum.
1 second. Everybody wait 1 second.